Welcome to Med Spa Secrets, and today we have a really special episode where we kind of want to pose the question to you, what is the right amount of money to spend on training? And to help us answer these questions, we have Dr. Tim and Miranda Pearce all the way from the UK meeting us here in Cancun, Mexico.
Yes!
So we're all happen to be at Russell Brunson's Inner Circle event, and we had the pleasure of meeting over a year ago now in Boise at an Inner Circle event. And we thought it would be a good opportunity to kind of come together and talk about costs associated with training, what kind of value you can get from training, and just how far it should go. So what do you guys, I know you guys have an event coming up here this summer with Julie Horn, which is kind of similar. It's also called Inner Circle, right?
Yes.
And I know there's also been a little bit of kind of talk in the med spa community about like, oh my God, it's $10,000. Like, how can somebody pay $10,000? And just for context, the event that we're all at currently costs $50,000 a year to get access to. So can you guys maybe speak a little bit about Julie Horn's Inner Circle and what it's all about, and you know why it's worth probably way more than $10,000?
Well, I think it's such an interesting concept, because I actually come from the other side of this equation of starting out, probably like most people do, with like, I haven't got any money, I need to get maximum return, which in those days meant spending as little as possible to get moving to the full circle round. So now thinking it's the best investment I can make. And the Julie Horn event started with us just brainstorming what was possible. And then I realized it didn't matter what we did, it was going to sell out because it was such an unusual combination.
Yeah.
But I had anxiety around that, and so did everyone else. Like, we wanted to make sure it was really good, so we went to the drawing board and said, how do we make it worth 10 times more? So trying to get into the heart of what people really wanted, the kind of people who buy tickets, to make sure that we actually did deliver much more value than that was. So that's the starting point for a good one of these events. Same as this type of event. This kind of event is worth way more to us, otherwise we wouldn't be here.
Right.
Because probably our second year of doing it. And it's very hard to get your head around that when you first start, because you just see the time and you don't understand the value because you've not learned how to use your business to extract value. And I think that's one of the key things that happens, that you suddenly realize it's knowing what to do that's holding me back from extracting more value, not the certificate.
Right.
It's the actual implementation of stuff. But yeah, it's been interesting to see that happen in our industry. People react. Some people kind of jovially teasing us, which I think is fine. Like, have a laugh at it, it's fine. And other people quite resentful of it. And it's just it's an observation. Like, and we're on the other side of spending way more, so it doesn't really. It's not the same once you know what you're going to do with it.
Right. Years ago, when Ben first signed up for doing these marketing things and learning from Russell Brunson, the idea of even spending like $1,200 a month seemed like astronomical. And it wasn't until I really had a hard time with him doing it. So when he started doing training with the marketing and stuff through Russell Brunson, I was really uncomfortable with it because I didn't understand what was being done and what we were learning or anything like that. He would come home and he'd be so excited and he'd want to implement. I had no idea the value that it had. I came to an event with him and it opened my mind. It just blew me wide open, because not only was he learning about marketing, there was so much that was being brought to the table as far as connections from different people in every specific like category of business that you could possibly think of, and then the connections that you made of people just doing incredible things. And even in the aesthetic realm, take a class with somebody like Rajani and it's $5,000 for a day and you're learning a specific thing, but it seems like a lot of money, but the people that are there, the people that you connect with, really they're serious, they're bringing something incredible to the table, and the like connections that you make through that are really, really good connections. They're like, for me, I took a class with Julie Kaplan, couple of classes, and when I had my vascular occlusion emergency, she was somebody that I knew, that I had paid for training with, and I had her contact information, and she had just happened to move to the town that I lived in, and I sent her a text message and she responded to me immediately. she brought to me all of her resources, her connections, like everybody in the industry that had connections for the only ultrasound on the West Coast, like the people willing to look at the imaging, look at the situation and offer their feedback. We had the best of the best physicians all chiming in because I had that connection. So it's not just about the $5,000 you spend or the $3,000 you spend. It's about the different relationships and the connections that you're able to achieve with that.
And I think there's a time element as well, because if you start your business tomorrow and you have big ambitions to achieve X, Y, Z by maybe a year, 2 years time, by being connected with Julie on that occasion or coming to the Julie Horn event or whatever it might be, you're speeding that up to be able to get to your goal, because those people are just they're gonna tell you, oh, don't do this mistake I made. Oh, don't do this, that's rubbish. And actually you can just get to your goal so much quicker. So it's an amazing time investment.
A big part of it for me is around conviction around what you actually do. So I actually refer to your story quite a lot, because last time I saw you told me this amazing idea, which is that you compete on price by making sure you're the most expensive.
Yes.
Which is like the total opposite way that other people compete on price.
Yeah.
And now if you just told me that on its own, it would be like, okay, fine. But I also know you have a really successful clinic. And so that really means it works.
Yeah.
And you meet people who give you, anyone can read a book and give you advice, but if they're not actually an implementer of it and don't actually own a business that's doing it, it doesn't actually make you want to act on it. So you pay for a network of people who, when they speak, it really matters, and then you actually go home and do it. Because otherwise, there's like an instinctive part of you that says, well, it might be true, it might not, I'm not going to take the risk. So this conviction that you get from having the right people give you the information, even if the information's already out there, it makes a huge difference.
Massively, because we're in the same industry, which of course is always going to be the case if you go to an aesthetics training. When Ben, you called me out on some of my BS when we met at a similar event in September. And because we already have this connection, this friendship, and because you are in aesthetics and because you're successful, that went in as like, I was not in any way offended. I was just like, God, he's so right. Whereas if I'd read that in a random book somewhere, nothing to do with me, not bespoke, not from my industry, not from a successful person, it probably would have gone in one ear out the other. But it really stuck with me, and I implemented and changed my behavior based on that. And that's exactly the same as if you went to an aesthetics training with some ballers.
Right.
I think the heart of this is that we're not really short of information. Like, we've all got everything, but you want someone you trust to give you that information, and then you do stuff. And for me, understanding that is everything, and it makes the money go out the window, because you know that you've got all this energy to do things and change things, but you're not implementing because you don't know what to do first. And someone who gives you a tip, who knows their stuff, so great.
Yeah. And then interestingly, on the flip side, what I found that people experienced from the Julie Horn event was, yes, she's a goddess. Everyone knows Julie Horn's a goddess, but she shared some vulnerabilities on stage. And so what people realized was, oh, wow, she's kind of like me in a weird way as well. And then if you meet someone who's weirdly like you, but they've achieved so much more than you, then you're like, maybe I could do it too. And that going back to your point around conviction, it makes you believe.
So I'm interested in your journey to that same point, because I know for most clinicians it's quite hard charging money and profit. There's an initial stage where it feels challenging, and you don't want to be rejected because you're more expensive than everyone else. How did you guys reach the point where you, with so much confidence, can basically pitch at the top end of the market?
It was really uncomfortable for me. I mean, I come from a lot of poverty, and I've kind of clawed my way to the top. I started out as a nurse and then grad school and all of that kind of stuff. And it was really a lot of mindset stuff, which I have to say a big piece of that has come from being surrounded by this community. A lot of the stuff that we do is we have these access to these incredible speakers that have like triumphed and have created these incredible billion-dollar industries by going through the hard stuff. And it's the same sort of thing where you're talking about Julie being vulnerable, where they show you that it's possible. For me, I had to really just wrap my head around and being comfortable knowing that I had value, right? That I have put in the work, I have done the trainings, I have invested the money to learn these things. I believe very passionately in what I do, and just being willing to take the plunge. But it took a lot of mindset stuff, really just being comfortable in, and I wasn't at first. I'd be like, it's $4,500. But I'd be like, I'd wait for the shoe to drop and somebody to go run it out. And really, like, people are like, okay, right? And I would literally practice in the mirror. It's $4,500. It's $4,500. $4,500. All of these sorts, and it got to the point where people responded, and my close rate got higher and higher. And then I became more and more confident. But it took, I mean, even just recording videos and things like that. The very first time I did that, I would like have these nervous meltdowns and I would cry. And now I can get on, I can record a little 30-second thing or a 5-minute conversation. It takes practice. So just getting comfortable, asking for it, knowing and believing. And part of me, like, I don't know that I necessarily believed it all at first, but it was kind of the fake it till you make it. And eventually it felt real and true, and it is.
Yeah. Can I ask a question? We're all saying that we think it's worth spending the money on expensive trainings, but how would someone watching this here now decide when they're looking at the different trainings on option, how would they decide which one is being led by successful people and it's not just all smoke and mirrors?
Well, that's a really good question. I think with people like, say, Julie Horn or Russell Brunson or Tony Robbins, I know you've been to a bunch of his stuff, like, their results are already out there. So it's very easy to go online and do a minimal amount of research, and at least with those kind of leaders, see that it isn't smoke and mirrors. I mean, everybody knows that Julie Horn is a big deal in Europe. She's known as the best lit person in the world. Everybody knows that Tony Robbins is the best coach. So starting out with those kind of people that are, you could say, maybe more like verified or verifiable, and then maybe kind of moving into more niche or lesser known coaches that are more like subject matter specific in different areas is definitely a good way to do it, in my opinion. Another thing too, I think, in terms of just kind of like what Tim spoke to about conviction, is just understanding basic human nature and realizing that, like, we're people too. You're a person too, someone who might be spending money on a training, and realizing that if you don't spend something that might be a little uncomfortable or a little bit of a stretch, that you might not actually get the value that you're looking for. And kind of point in case, you said something about like just reading something in a book and it goes in one ear and out the other. Well, books are cheap, right? You can get a book for $30, $20. But when people pay more, they pay attention, right? Because they're actually invested in it. And I think that's what's really creates a lot of the conviction when you go to these high-ticket masterminds. Because when I spend $50,000 to come see Russell Brunson, I don't miss a presentation. I don't not take notes for the most part. Whereas if I spend $15, get a book on Audible, and I can go like, oh, that's a cool idea, but in a couple of days I've gotten busy or something else distracted me and then I don't remember it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I a few times that's left to tell myself not to do it to try and rescue someone. So I had a couple, someone who I've trained who had some bad luck in their life and put it on the sob story in our group, and it's like, right, I'm gonna give you everything I can so you can build a practice. And I literally opened my business to her. She could come and learn everything. And she kind of came to a couple of things and then just dropped out. The next thing I saw her hit for sale on the website and she just hadn't done it.
Oh.
And that goes to what you say, that easy come, easy go. If you don't charge, there's nothing to lose. That was actually one of the last times I consciously gave away something for nothing without it being part of a strategy, because I realized people actually don't get value when it's free. It's actually better for them than they pay. And it's quite hard to get your head around that at the beginning, because you feel like a kind person is giving away stuff for free, but they don't actually use it. Whereas the people who raise their hand and say, I'm willing to commit, who actually then implement, they actually get the value. So it's...
But Jen, do you think there's anything, like, what about the sequence? Because I worry about people just throwing, like, oh, I'll get a loan for $100,000 and just, oh, if I spend more, I'll be successful. You have to implement a course, but is there any practical tips around, what they should spend at first?
Right. Well, I mean, I think start with what's simple, right? So you take your basic classes, you're gonna learn your Botox and your fillers, and you're going to get comfortable with that. And then I started out just watching tons of YouTube. I mean, that's how I came across you guys. And lots of Instagram videos and following people and seeing what it was that I wanted to learn next, and something that would like move the dial forward, right? I wanted to learn how to use a cannula. So I took a class on cannulas, and it was a $1,200 class. It wasn't a $10,000 Julie Horn inner circle. That was farther down the line. It's finding what it is that my patients were asking for, what I felt like I could apply. One of the things that I'm really good at is I can learn a technique and then I can apply it to a lot of different things, right? So just building the foundation of the skill sets that could move the dial forward a lot, right?
And did you ever waste any money? That's an interesting question. You should answer that as well, Tim.
Not on any of the aesthetic classes. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I've definitely bought books that I haven't read and things like that, but not when I spent lots of money.
Yeah.
I wasted money on a course that we spent a long time trying to find someone to explain something who wasn't too expensive, what was the other element? They weren't a trainer as well. So I got someone who was already into this type of laser and convinced them we would charge that if we would pay that they would train me, but the training was so bad that I couldn't use it.
Oh, okay.
So there's something to be said for someone who's actually systematically doing it rather than a lot of people try and shadow other injectors, which is fine. Like you can definitely learn something, but you can also just shadow someone who's not very good, and you don't know.
The other thing I would caution against, and I'm like Ben, I'm on the business side of things, is taking whether it be free training or advice generally from people who haven't lived and actually had that small business like you have. So I'm going to call out particularly like drug reps. Of course, their intention is good, fine, whatever. And by all means, but like you could get some really good clinical training from drug reps in England anyway, but they gave us some shocking business advice.
But these aren't even the drug rep. You're talking about the paid MBA guy.
And it worked for the company.
But basically every good idea I've had, he said was a bad idea. And I did it anyway, and I was definitely right.
Honestly, if I met him now, I'd be like, hi, I really like that, good intentions. But the fact is, he hadn't had a small business like me.
Right.
So I would say, again, this comes back to this point about how do you choose good training. Choose someone who you vibe with, and you like the culture of, and who's walked your path and is ahead of you.
Absolutely. Before I met Russell, I actually worked with Alex and Layla Hormozi, and I actually, not that I necessarily recommended doing this, but I did spend money I didn't have to take their initial training, and that was a really big part of the fact that it was on a credit card, and the gym that I had at the time didn't have the revenue to pay for it if it didn't actually work. Was what made me make it work.
Wow. So it's like burning the boat.
So
You had the lunch.
so I mean, you definitely need to be smart. Don't necessarily spend money you don't have if you can't verify that the person has done what you were wanting to do. But I looked at Alex, saw that he had created a chain of successful gyms before he started training people. So not to necessarily totally like counter your point about just throwing money at things, but sometimes if you do that initial research, it's not necessarily bad to back yourself up against a wall to make yourself perform, at least in my opinion.
But that's because you trusted yourself, I think, to implement it. What I do see is people almost like binge eating on training.
Oh, yeah.
So they'll buy they're like, I want to do aesthetics. They'll buy like 3 fat, expensive, and then not really implement any of it because they have mindset blocks, as we all do.
So
They're trying to feel worthy instead of actually what you did, which is like hustle and implement.
So interesting. I think that's the risk of the moderately successful injector who's got a business that's ticking over, and they just send all their profit on training to let's stay the same. Whereas you had no option. You were like, I have to build out of this and actually make something profitable. So it's a whole different energy to. I don't want to be left out. A lot of people in our industry are kind of FOMO driven, which is fine, but I would say make sure it's a Hormozi thing, isn't it? You've learned nothing unless you change your behavior.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So you have to do something different. And that, I often think of that in these events, like I have to do something or this is a waste of money.
I wonder if anybody has any ideas that they could speak to about like the concept of value versus price. Especially maybe from some of the stuff that you've gotten from Tony. Like if you can look at a course where, I don't know, maybe you don't, I'm not actually on the medical side, so I'm not necessarily a great speaker to like particular techniques, but like maybe you don't know how to do lips or whatever, for example. But you realize if you take this course and you implement it, all you need to do is sell like 5 sets of lips, and then you've paid for the course, and then you know that you're going to continue to keep selling that service down the road. So while the course itself may have been $10,000, the value is over the lifetime of your business, potentially hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars.
I think that's one of the things that you have to train, even with patients, you have to train yourself to be in touch with the real value. So when you treat a patient, like I always say, no one wants filler, no one wants Botox, they want the impact of it.
Right.
And if you're not looking for that impact with your patients, because you never talk to them, you don't know that it meant they've got a new relationship now, they've got a job promotion, whatever it is they wanted to do is happening.
Right.
So that's from the patient side. From the training side, I still battle with it because when I still look at it from my side of what the profit margin is, but in reality, it's like you said, if you teach someone a good tip, it can literally be worth millions.
Yeah.
Like I think of some of the courses I started at the beginning with that I thought were expensive, and like since then, I don't know, we've probably made like 25 million off the that's not
awesome.
That's not our profit.
Of course, yeah.
It's like, how do you?
Maybe it's about understanding what your limiting factor is. So if someone said to me the other day, they referred to my course, which is a marketing course, and they said I bought Tim's complications course. She was feeling overwhelmed and she said, which one should I do first? And I said, whichever is limiting you. So if you are so anxious about making a course in vascular occlusion, and that it's meaning that you don't even offer fillers, then take Tim's course.
Yeah.
But if you're quite comfortable, you feel competent, you're ready to go, but you have got no human beings to inject, then take my course. So that if you can get clear with what's holding you back, then that will help you understand which is the greatest value to you.
Now, since we have you both here at the same time, and I don't necessarily know that there's a big American audience that necessarily knows about you guys yet, can you tell us a little bit about your respective courses so that our audience can kind of know about other training that could be available?
So we have a clinic, a training school, and then an online platform. So our dynamic is Miranda is basically amazing at marketing, and she's more in that kind of excitable sales cheerleader, loves seeing her audience succeed. She knows our audience really, really well. You should probably be saying this stuff. And then so we support practitioners to develop businesses from the business side through your platform, and then the clinical side through my platform.
And the easiest thing you could probably do is go and check out Tim's YouTube videos at Dr Tim Pearce, Pearce on YouTube, and he gives away loads of gorgeous clinical free stuff.
Really good stuff.
Fantastic. And where can people find your stuff?
So the best thing is on Instagram at Miranda Pearce Mindset, and so I will make you brave. If you are stuck and you don't know where to turn next, and you just know there's more in you, that you have potential, and you'd like to make that happen, then whether it be through getting yourself out there, or whether it be through just no longer listening to your BS limiting beliefs, I will help you.
Love that.
And then last but certainly not least, tell us just a little bit about the upcoming event that you guys are both doing with Julie Horn here in Zurich.
And you guys are coming as well.
We are going to come as
We
attendees. We're super excited to see you on stage, by the way.
I don't know if there's any tickets left, is the only thing I'd say. I actually don't know. But yeah, so it's an amazing event, Inner Circle. Goodness, I think some lives were changed last time. It's the second time it's happening. And there are 5 speakers: Julie Horn, her business partner, Felix Bertram, who is a doctor, but also a business badass. He has $100 million a year clinic in Switzerland.
Oh my
And he's
gosh.
such an amazing, humble guy.
It's not age, I think it's like 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, Tim's speaking, I'm speaking, and also Dr. Roger Killer, who is amazing to watch on stage inject. So yeah, it's going to be an amazing week.
And Sebastian Kurzweil.
Oh goodness, yes, of course.
And then we've also got from the aesthetic emergent Laurie
Yes.
and Julie Bass-Kaplan.
Oh my goodness, that's terrible. I
It
just
is an
looked at
all-star lineup.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I'm really excited.
It's probably worth talking about this husband and wife dynamic.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's quite an interesting thing. A lot of people, when I first started, were like, shouldn't really work with your partner, but I think if it works well, it can be the best. It can cause 11 o'clock at night when you look at the wrong thing. But I think what you guys have got is this beautiful balance between 2 different skill sets. You've got the business-minded driver, and then you've got the caring, basically what I think the core of aesthetics is a caring attitude to patients. So if you can take that and scale it up, which is what I know you're going to do next, it's really exciting. But how do you find it? Is that, because that's what it looks on the outside, is that what it is on the inside?
Should we keep recording or not?
Yeah.
Oh, always, to be entirely honest. But I think that's part of being married, like whether you're running a business together or anything. But I think the important thing to really remember is that like you've chosen to share a life, and in this case also a business with somebody, and we're on the same team and we're going in the same direction. So regardless of whether there's like a disagreement about something or a spat or emotions and tensions get high, you have to come back to that common place so that you're trying to build the same life through building the same business. And like ultimately those other things are very small or minor things compared to that larger strategic thing. So if we have a disagreement about how I want to keep raising prices and she doesn't feel comfortable with that, then that's something we might have to keep working on, but that doesn't mean that we don't be business partners anymore or stop being married or anything like that.
Oh, I should clarify, it's not like we get on or agree on everything either. But it's what I realized quite early on is that she was strong or I was weak and vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's something in that which I see a lot of practitioners try and find people who are like them to go into business with.
Yes.
They find their best friend who they did nursing school together, and then what have they got? They basically duplicated their costs and don't have any extra skills. It's like a really bad, but it's so tempting because it's scary to start out, and actually to look for that person who's different and strong where you're weak and vice versa is great. But unfortunately, it's the same with Lee, who's not here. Like, we think so differently that actually we piss each other off a lot.
Sure.
Like, he's quite often pissed off at me, and but I understand that now as actually the right thing for the business, because we pull each other in the right direction and compensate for each other.
And kind of push each other outside of the comfort zone, right? I mean, because if I didn't have him, I wouldn't have the organization and the structure and the processes, and I wouldn't make any money. Because I am like, oh, I'm the bleeding heart of aesthetics. I'm giving it all away, and it just doesn't work. And you've got the employees that walk all over, and it's all those sorts of things. That's where he's strong. I'm really good at showing up in the room with the patient and having like vision and where we're gonna go and what I want to learn and what I want to bring. So I mean, yeah, definitely it's.
So that's the bit that I see, and it's this idea which I occasionally come up with a good catchphrase, which is if you want to treat with your heart, you need to price with your head. And you're like you're the human personification of that.
Well, I want to thank you guys so much for coming on to Med Spa Secrets. I want all of you to follow these guys, consume their content. I encourage you to probably buy some of their courses. And if you got some great value from that, please give us a thumbs up and hit a subscribe so that we can share more Med Spa Secrets with you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.